I used to believe love was the answer to everything. Growing up, I watched my parents share a bond that never seemed to fade, and I thought one day I'd have that too. And for a while, I believed I had. Sarah and I had a whirlwind romance. We met during our senior year of college. She was this vibrant, charismatic woman who turned heads everywhere she went, and I was just lucky enough to catch her eye. It was one of those classic love stories, the kind you'd see in movies. I was a bit of a nerd, always with my head buried in books, while Sarah was outgoing, always the life of the party. Somehow we balanced each other out. She brought excitement and spontaneity into my life while I gave her stability, or at least I thought I did. We spent countless nights laughing over cheap wine and takeout, talking about our future, how we'd travel, build a life together, maybe start a family. She was my world, and I was hers, or so I believed. We got married a year after graduation, in a small ceremony on the beach, surrounded by close friends and family. It felt like the start of something magical, the beginning of our happily ever after. Our first few years together were picture perfect. We moved into a cozy little house, adopted a dog, and both landed stable jobs. Everything was falling into place. But life has a way of creeping up on you when you least expect it. Looking back now, I can't pinpoint the exact moment things started to change. It wasn't like a switch was flipped, it was more like a slow, steady erosion. Maybe it started when she got her promotion. Sarah was always ambitious, and when she was offered a leadership role at her company, I was genuinely proud of her. But with that promotion came long hours, late nights, and a noticeable distance between us. At first, I chalked it up to the demands of her new role. She was exhausted, stressed out. I told myself it would get better once she settled into her new position. But weeks turned into months, and the gap between us widened. She started going out more, work dinners, networking events, weekends spent with colleagues. I tried to be supportive, to give her space, but something inside me gnawed at my confidence. Our conversations became shorter, less meaningful. The laughter that used to fill our home was replaced with silence or shallow exchanges about mundane things, work, bills, the weather. Then came the secrecy. Her phone, once casually left around the house, was now glued to her hand. She'd step outside to take calls, and when I asked who it was, her answers were vague, just work stuff she'd say. I noticed she had a new password on her phone, something she never bothered with before. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing. I was just being paranoid, right? Sarah wasn't the type to cheat. We were solid, or at least I thought we were. The doubts kept building though. I remember one evening, we were supposed to have a date night, something we hadn't done in a while. I had made reservations at her favorite restaurant, even bought her a new necklace as a surprise. But she called me 2 hours before, claiming she had to stay late at the office. It's this last-minute project, she explained, her voice distant. I'll make it up to you. I promise. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But then came that rainy Friday evening, the day that changed everything. I had gotten off work early and decided to surprise her. I picked up her favorite Thai food, the kind we used to binge on during college, thinking maybe we could have one of those cozy nights in like we used to. The drive home was miserable, pouring rain, traffic at a standstill, but I didn't mind. I was excited to see her, to maybe reconnect, even if just for one night. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Her car was already there. I figured she must have come home early too, which made me smile. Maybe she was planning a surprise of her own. I stepped inside, calling out her name, but there was no response. The house was quiet, too quiet. I left the food on the counter and started up the stairs, assuming she was in our bedroom. That's when I heard it, the faint sound of her voice coming from behind the closed bedroom door. I froze, listening. I miss you too, she whispered, her voice soft, intimate in a way I hadn't heard in a long time. I hate lying to him, but he has no idea. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. Clueless. That's what I was. The realization hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I had devoted my life to, was talking to another man. She was cheating, and I had been too blind to see it. I didn't burst in. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just stood there, numb, as she continued her conversation, making plans to meet him, to sneak around behind my back again. When she hung up the phone, I quietly walked back down the stairs and out of the house, into the rain. I don't even remember where I went that night, just that I drove for hours, trying to process what I had just heard. For the next few days, I acted like nothing had changed. I went to work, came home, kissed her goodnight, and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was breaking. I needed proof, real, undeniable proof. So I became the man I never thought I'd be. I snooped through her phone, read her texts, installed a tracking app on her car. I hated myself for it, but I needed to know the truth. And the truth was uglier than I had imagined. It wasn't just one guy. There were multiple affairs, some short-lived flings, others more serious. The guy she was currently seeing was someone from her gym, but before him, there had been a coworker, and before that, a so-called old friend she reconnected with. It felt like I had been living in a lie for years, like our entire marriage was built on a foundation of betrayal. I wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to make her feel the pain I was feeling. But every time I looked at her, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Part of me still loved her, or maybe I just loved the idea of her, the version of her that existed before all of this. I didn't want to believe that the woman I married could be capable of something so heartless. Finally, after weeks of torment, I asked her to sit down with me. I told her I knew everything that I had found out about the affairs. I expected her to deny it, to beg for forgiveness. But she didn't. She didn't even flinch. "I was going to tell you," she said, as if that made it any better. I just didn't know how. Her coldness stunned me. I asked her why she had done it, why she had betrayed me over and over again. She shrugged, like it didn't even matter. "I don't know," she said. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to get this far." I felt like I was talking to a stranger. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. She wasn't the Sarah I knew. She was someone else, someone who had taken everything we had and thrown it away like it meant nothing. I left that night, packed a bag, called a friend, and crashed on his couch. The next few weeks were a blur of anger, sadness, and confusion. I wanted answers, but none of them would bring back what I had lost. Eventually, I filed for divorce. There was no saving us, no fixing the damage that had been done. Our love had taken a dark turn, and there was no coming back from that. The scars she left on me run deep. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone the way I trusted her. But I do know one thing I deserve better. I deserve a love that won't betray me, a love that won't turn dark. And maybe one day I'll find that again. But for now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces of the life I thought I had. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey through today's cheating wife story, the darkest turn of love. If this story struck a chord with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Story Voyage for more compelling narratives. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Stay tuned for our next story, and until then, take care and keep exploring with Story Voyage.